My name is Catalina Laborin, Garcia, and I'm here to talk about my story. My family was a typical family. My dad, my mom, and I had 4 brothers. I was the only girl. I had 4 of my brothers were hemophiliacs. And what happens is that hemophilia is a blood disorder. They're missing the clotting factor, so they have to get treatment whenever they get an injury, in order for them to get treated. The mom's a carrier, and it's passed on to her children, to her male children. It could be life-threatening if there is no treatment. The treatment is blood products. It would be factor VIII. Well, actually, my brothers, from a very young age, since they were born, they knew they had hemophilia. So whenever they would injure themselves or get hurt, they would get a treatment. They would get actually, at the very beginning, it was infusions, which would take hours. In the early 80s, a new treatment came about, and it was factor VIII. So it was really easy. They could self-infuse. It was a miracle treatment, and it made life easier. My brothers were very active. They did all kinds of sports, swimming, skateboarding, basketball. So when you have children that are so active, my mother spent a lot of time in the emergency room with my brothers getting treatment. It was a sure thing that we knew everybody by name at the emergency room. They were just waiting for us to get there. Well, the AIDS epidemic started in the early 80s. You started hearing about all these people, special populations dying. During that time, it was the homosexual and IV drug users. They weren't sure how it was spread. They had some ideas, but during that time, it was especially news coming out of San Francisco, where a lot of gay white males dying. Yes. What happened in the early 80s, we were questioning, because we did hear something, it had something to do with blood transmission. We were told not to worry, that it was a very small population that had gotten infected, but it's nothing to worry. My brothers were saved, the blood products were saved, everything. Yes, they kept using factor VIII. During that time, they were using a lot of factor VIII. Anytime the treatment was, anytime they got hurt, go ahead and infuse yourself. So in our refrigerator, we always had a large supply of blood products or factor VIII. Yes. Later we realized that almost all the blood products were contaminated. with the AIDS virus. What was happening is that when the pharmaceutical companies were getting the blood products for the hemophiliacs, there were no screening was being done. So say you have 10 healthy people give blood, and you have, or 20 people give blood, and then you have one IV drug user give blood who had the AIDS virus, then all that would be contaminated with AIDS. We were never told that, and actually the pharmaceutical companies were not screening anybody, and were actually going to the places where it was a lot of high risk individuals were giving blood. Yes, or that something that could have been prevented. One of the biggest issues that a lot of hemophiliacs had was they wanted to be told, make it their decision if they wanted to be treated or not. Most of the injuries that they had were minor injuries that maybe they could have not taken factor VIII. I guess they weren't given the choice. Later, and I still remember that when it got when it got there in the public, everybody knew. The CDC already knew about what was going to happen. There had been a doctor that worked at the CDC who had already warned the CDC that this was going to happen with the hemophiliacs, and that all the hemophiliacs were going to die. And this young doctor went and testified with all the pharmaceutical companies, and just they didn't hear this. And also the government, the CDC, didn't do anything to protect the hemophiliacs. And also at that time, there was the Hemophilia Foundation, which received a lot of money from the pharmaceutical companies. And they really didn't do anything to assist or to help or to cry out what was going on. All my brothers, we were never notified that they had even gotten tested. We were brought into a room and just straight out told that all my brothers, at the very beginning, when you get infected, it's HIV. When your immune system goes down more, and it goes to AIDS. So you're HIV, and then you move on to getting AIDS if you have no immune system. During that time, there was nothing to cure AIDS, and my brothers, we were just told straight out, you're gonna die. You have AIDS. Well, my brother, my second to the oldest brother, was my only brother that was left, and he was a big advocate of what was going on with the hemophiliacs, and he did a lot of research and was able to find out everything that was happening, and how nobody, the doctors, the nurse, nobody told us the truth. We later on, I got more involved with the hemophiliacs, and I was able to meet some other ones, and my brother also, and we were able to see that this had not only happened to us, but it had happened to other hemophiliacs all over the United States. Like I said, at the beginning of the epidemic, there were 10,000 hemophiliacs. Over 9,000 hemophiliacs died. The AIDS epidemic totally wiped out the hemophiliac population during that time. Yes, I think during that time, there was a lot of we kept the secret quiet. We never said anything. I wanted to protect my brothers, and my mother wanted to protect her sons. It was something that we kept as a family secret. And during that time, there was a lot of discrimination in our church. Not in our church, but in the Christian world. A lot of evangelists that came on TV were saying that this was a curse from God. That there was just a lot of ignorance regarding AIDS. A lot of people really didn't understand how the hemophiliacs had gotten infected through the blood products. They thought it was through different activities, but so there was a lot of ignorance in the community, a lot of discrimination. I'm grateful that our close family friends in our church really, we never felt that discrimination. But somehow we did see that, especially with my my two brothers that died early on. But it was a very difficult time. In the news, you just heard about almost what we're hearing now, but not with the coronavirus, but not to that level. It was an epidemic. There were people dying, but it wasn't widespread. But you did hear in other countries where people were also dying of the same disease. What the hemophiliacs did was, after they had all this information and there was a lot of anger in the community and there was so much loss, I remember during those times with friends of ours that had the hemophiliacs, with friends, going to different services almost every week. I remember going to one of my brother's friends' wedding, and a month later going to his funeral. There were a lot of cases like this. I had two brothers that passed away within a month of each other. So it was a very, very, very hard time for us. And I guess the only thing that really kept us together was our faith in God. At times I think I felt angry at God. Why? What was the purpose of this? A lot of anger toward God, toward some of the Christian people, some of the ignorant Christian people. But yet I knew I knew that it's really hard to explain, but within all of the turmoil that I was going through, there was peace, and that's the only peace that you get from God. Well, this is really this is sad. The pharmaceuticals actually, after they retrieve the blood here, instead of destroying the blood products, they send them, in order not to lose that money, they send them off to other countries. So some of those were sent to Japan, where we had almost 5,000 hemophiliacs that died in Japan. They send them to other countries, and those were the populations of hemophiliacs with AIDS that eventually died too. No, no, no. And this happened like in 1998, and this is when almost all the hemophiliacs had already passed away. Finally, the class action suit was settled. The pharmaceuticals settled with the hemophiliacs. The government also passed almost a way of saying we messed up here, take this. And it was actually I can't remember the name, but it was, so the pharmaceuticals settled, and also there was, the government also settled with the hemophiliac families. And actually there was a group of hemophiliacs, and it was called the Committee of 10,000, because there was 10,000 hemophiliacs that had been infected with this. What that group of hemophiliacs did was pass laws in order for this Holocaust never to happen again with what was done with the hemophiliacs. So a lot of the blood safety laws that we have now, we can contribute those to the Committee of 10,000, and most of the members have already passed away. No, we didn't want money. What we wanted, and my brothers stated that we just wanted them to say, I'm sorry. We just wanted them to say, we messed up. I think with everything that happened, I think that kind of changed my career. And I think it's very important for people to get second opinions, not just to trust the doctors, but also to question some of the what they're doing. And I think that's one of the things that we never questioned. We never, we never said anything. I think that's, I think what we felt from the healthcare system, it's a betrayal, that they betrayed us. We looked upon them as family, and they betrayed us. One thing that happened with the hemophiliacs is that usually you had a lot of brothers, siblings that had hemophilia. In one of the conventions I went to, you would see that maybe you had two brothers, maybe a cousin, people. It was a lot of families. It just affected so many people, so many families. We went to a couple of conventions with hemophiliacs, and I remember one in particular which I went as a caseworker working with hemophiliacs, and I saw the anger that this population had. I saw the anger in their mothers, the fathers, the children. I mean, it was something that it was dreadful what they went through, and painful. I mean, it was hard. And then not only suffering the disease, but then suffering the discrimination that went with that was even harder. Like my mother said, I know and I have dealt with hemophilia, but with this, I have no idea what it is. It was something that was so unknown for us. It was a very hard time. I think I think I would like to think our government has learned from its mistakes. I think the CDC is more active than before. I do think the blood products are safer now than they were before. When we're talking about a lot of people, the hemophiliacs getting infected with the blood products, but there were also other people that got infected with AIDS that received blood transfusions. So there were a lot of people that died because people were not being screened for blood product for when they were giving blood. I think they do a lot of screening more than they did before. Also with blood products for the hemophiliacs, it's heat treated now. So we know that if there's any viruses, the heat kills the virus. And with that committee of 10,000, they really advocated for blood safety, because it was not just a hemophilia. It was not just the blood products for the hemophiliacs, but it was also other things that, like hepatitis. There were some other issues with blood safety, which now we're able to say that I would safely say now that I would get a blood transfusion, where maybe I wouldn't have said that years ago.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.